Hello again, football fans. Chris Dunn here with another RFL draft team preview. The Tampa Bay Tigers will have a handful of picks this weekend. Unfortunately, they have no pick in round two. So let's go ahead and take a peek at the draft capital that the Tigers will have this weekend. They will pick 8th overall, which will be tonight. They'll also pick second in the third round, and then they will pick 8th overall in the 5th round, 6th round, and 7th round. So again, only 5 picks in this draft. And for a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, they are definitely looking to get back to the promised land, right? We talked about this division in an earlier video. It's not the easiest division. The Diablos appear to be the team to beat. And then you've got the likes of the Thunderbirds and the Desperados there as well. So certainly a difficult division, one that I think the Tigers could, I don't know if they're going to win the division, but I do think that this is a playoff caliber team. It just depends on if things are going to fall in place. And then also, what are they going to be able to do with that 8th overall pick? And are they going to be able to get contributions in year one from that 3rd round pick or even that 5th round pick, right? Typically, you don't see immediate contributions from guys that are going in round 4, 5, 6, 7. Every now and then you get a flyer and you get some guys that do contribute as a 4th round pick. But typically your round 5, 6, 7 guys are just not seeing the field more than anything. And if they are seeing the field, well, they're probably not making those immediate contributions that you would like. So if you're the Tigers, you're really looking at that 1st round pick and that 3rd round pick to try and make some immediate impact. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the roster and what we're looking at here in terms of the Tigers. You see the division breakdown there, but when we're looking at the upcoming free agents, right? Like this is always an important place to look because these guys are going to be free agents at the end of the year, which means conversations are going to be made throughout the entire course of the season on whether or not these guys are going to be returning. How much money are they asking for? How many years are they asking for? Are there younger players that have the ability to step up and develop if we do let some of these guys go into free agency? So let's just take a look at Parker Brockers, obviously the veteran corner. And then you've got Wendell DeMonte. So Wendell DeMonte was a free agent signing this offseason. They signed DeMonte to a 1-year deal and they're giving him $30 million. So I would imagine that DeMonte is only going to be there this 1 year and he'll go back into free agency at the end of the year. Again, and that $30 million that you're going to free up from DeMonte, you will be able to give other guys. They'll be able to give some of that to a Zane Nasir. They'll be able to give some of that to a Drake Sandstrom. Drake Sandstrom, an interesting conversation here that in a scenario that I will bring up. It's what I would consider to be a bold take, and a very unlikely scenario. However, I'll get into my Drake Sandstrom take here in a minute. And then you've got Dwight Northrup and a couple guys on the offensive line. As you can see, Mitchell Huber and then Evan Medlock, also potential free agents. But the offensive line for the Tigers is not what I'm worried about. If we go and take a look at the depth chart here, the offensive line is pretty loaded, right? Like you've got Aiden Mahil, Devontae Dean, Thomas Brown, Olin Shaw, Tyrell Clemens. Like we just looked at Medlock and Huber as potential free agents at the end of the year. But right now, those guys are depth players. Like they're not even starting unless you find like the right matchup where you're moving guys around and being strategic and you like certain attributes for a guy like Medlock. But it looks like Evan Medlock and Mitchell Huber are backup options. So I would imagine that you're probably not going out of your way to re-sign those guys because they're going to want more money, probably want more money than what they're getting right now. And if they're just backups, well, you could kind of, if you're just putting a backup offensive lineman on your roster, well, you could get a guy in the draft to be a backup offensive lineman and you're paying him peanuts compared to, what you might have to pay to re-sign a guy like a Medlock or a Huber. So I'm not really worried about the offensive line. I think you could make an argument that the Tigers may have the best offensive line in the RFL. And so I don't believe that with only 5 draft picks, that's going to be an area that they're going to, really go out of their way to try to bring a guy in. And then if you look at the receiver position, nobody here as a potential free agent, which is good, but you only have 4 guys on the roster. So with only 4 wide receivers on the roster, you'd really like to carry 6. Now, I know that 6 guys aren't going to see the field, but a lot of times the way that depth charts work, if you don't have 6 guys on your roster at the wide receiver position, then they'll throw tight ends in there. Sometimes they get funky, and we see corners lining up on offense. And a lot of times it's just because wear and tear, injuries. Like if you don't have enough guys, you're going to find yourself in trouble. So, with only 4 wide receivers on the depth chart right now, I would not be surprised if with that 6th round pick or 7th round pick, or maybe even both, the Tigers looked at wide receiver just to bring in some bodies, because you have to have, at minimum, you really need to have 5, and you'd like to have 6 guys at least at the position. And so nothing that they're going to do early, I don't imagine. Maybe you could make a case for them with that 3rd round pick trying to go wide receiver, but I don't think, I think the earliest that you would even entertain a wide receiver if you were the Tigers would be around 5. And more likely it's probably around 6 and around 7. Again, offensive line, not really something that I'm worried about. But the tight end position, we talked about Zayn Nasir, right? You're going to have to re-sign him. I would like to think that Zayn Nasir is a top priority, right? Kai Cash wants to have that safety blanket. One of the biggest assets for a young developing quarterback is a tight end that you can rely on. And so I think that the Tigers would like to re-sign Zayn Nasir. I think he will be a priority here. And with a lot of the money that you're freeing up with Wendell DiManche coming off the books, again, $30 million coming off the books, that money could certainly go to Zayn Nasir. So I would imagine that they get that done as soon as possible. Zayn Nasir will be back. And then you're looking at Tom Santiago, who's also under contract. So, I'm not really looking at the tight end position here necessarily. Again, I do think they need to go at least 1, maybe 2 wide receivers. And with only 5 draft picks, that pretty much leaves 3 positions that you can look to address, or at least 3 roster spots that you can look to address. And then let's get a little bit funky here, right? Drake Sandstrom is a potential free agent at the end of the year. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't think this will happen. Regardless of how much money Drake Sandstrom wants, the $30 million that they're going to take off the books from Wendell DiManche, I think that money could go to signing Zayn Nasir and Drake Sandstrom. I think that they could get that done. I think for $30 million a year, they could have both of those players. Again, I don't know what Drake Sandstrom is going to ask for. Excuse me. Maybe he's going to ask for, 10 to 12. Maybe he's going to ask for like 14 million. I don't know. But I don't think Zayn Nasir is going to ask for that much. And even if they do, if each of these guys are asking for 15 million a year, again, you're getting 30 million off the book. So I don't think that this will happen. However, with the 8th pick in the draft, if you didn't like what you were seeing from Drake Sandstrom and you didn't want to get yourself in a situation where you were giving him 15 million a year for the next 3 or 4 years, if let's say you don't want to get tied into that long-term financial, situation with Drake Sandstrom, who, again, if you don't love what you've seen and you don't love the contributions and you're thinking about, letting him go at the end of the year into free agency rather than paying that money to re-sign him, I mean, Bo Sanders would absolutely throw shockwaves through the entire RFL if he were to go 8th overall. Now, again, I would put the likelihood I'd put the likelihood of this happening at about 1%, maybe at most 4%. Again, I do not think that this will happen. However, crazier things have happened. And if you were the Tigers and you're looking to really build something on offense around Kai Cash and you're not loving what you're seeing from Drake Sandstrom, I mean, Bo Sanders to the Tigers, as wild as it might seem, it's not impossible to envision. And if you're Bo Sanders, I think you would love that. Obviously, you would love that. You'd love to hear your name go in the top 10. But more than anything, if he doesn't go, like there's only a small handful of teams. I don't even think there's 5 teams that would consider taking a running back in the first round. And so, again, I don't think that this will happen, but I would say that the Tigers are probably one of only 3 or 4 teams where you would even consider taking running back, right? And again, don't think it's going to happen. They only have 5 picks in this draft, and I think that there are more pressing areas that they would like to go and should probably go. And they could just re-sign Drake Sandstrom, and it's not a problem. Again, if they like Drake Sandstrom and they're comfortable with him moving forward, then great. Lock him into a 3-year deal. Maybe give him a little bit more and just take a 2-year deal, right? But a bold take, a hot take, if you will, don't think it will happen. But imagine the ripple through the RFL if Bo Sanders' name were to be called later on tonight with the 8th pick, headed to Tampa Bay. Let's look at some of the defensive options here, and you've got Dominic Moore, again, Wendell DeMonte, $30 million coming off the book, Dwayne Rucker, Isaiah Mosley, Dwight Northrup. So Dwight Northrup coming off the edge, potential free agent. Wendell DeMonte coming off the edge, potential free agent. And let's be honest, he's not going to come back. So as of right now, heading into season 11, you would only have Isaiah Mosley on your roster in terms of edge rusher. So either you're going to have to sign a guy in free agency next year, draft a rookie next year in season 11 draft to start right away, or, and this is what I think they might try to do, is take an edge rusher with that 8th pick in the first round. And I think if you're picking 8 and you're the Tigers, you're really hoping that a guy like Manny Rojas falls, right? Like if we all think that Ethan Marks and Manny Rojas are the 2 top defensive ends, I think the Tigers are hoping somehow that one of those 2 guys are available for them with the 8th pick. Because I think if they are, then that is a definite conversation to be had in the building on going edge rusher at 8 overall. Now, if you didn't go edge rusher at 8 overall, then I think you definitely have to look at edge rusher in round 3. Because again, you don't have a round 2 pick. And so if you're not going to go edge rusher in round 1, well, then where could you go if you're the Tigers, right? I don't really know that they would go round 1 or round 3 here at any of the linebacker spots. So I'm just going to skip right to the secondary because this is the other area that I think that they could go. Again, Parker Brocker's coming off the books if you're not going to re-sign him. He's a free agent at the end of the year. He's 30 years old. Is he going to regress? Is he going to go from a 90 overall X factor down to like an 87 overall superstar? That could happen. And how much money is he going to ask for? At 30 years old, he's probably asking for like a 2-year deal. He might even be asking for a 3-year deal, right? Because he wants that security. I'm sure he's not going to want to take a 1-year deal because then he's going to be 31 years old, having started to regress. And he Parker Brockers is going to want to maximize what he can get now. So I would imagine at minimum, it's going to be a 2-year deal. In reality, Parker Brockers is probably going to want a 3-year deal. I don't know that the Tigers are going to want to do that. So they do have Michael Blount Jr., 81 overall. He's 23 years old. Nice player. The normal dev, you'd hope that at some point he can get that up, right? Like maybe he can have a breakout campaign and get himself to star dev. I think that would be, that would be a best case scenario for the Tigers. But after that, you kind of find yourself in a little bit of trouble, right? Like you look at Kadero Moreland, 26 years old, 76 overall. Right now, he's your number 3 corner. And if Brockers is gone at the end of the year, well, now you're looking at Kadero Moreland as potentially your number 2 corner. And I don't think that's a situation that the Tigers want to be in, not in the division that they're in. I think they need better at the back half. They need better in the secondary. So I think that the 2 positions that the Tigers are most likely going to go with their first and third round pick are going to be corner and edge rusher. Now, is that edge rusher in 1 and corner in 3, or is that corner in 1 and edge rusher in 3? I don't know. I think ultimately it depends on what happens 1 through 7, because here's what I will say. If you're looking at the corner position, right? Like let's say you think that corner is a little bit more important for the Tigers. If Xavier Savage is gone, but Jack Sky is available at 8, I think the Tigers go Jack Sky at 8. But if Xavier Savage is gone and Jack Sky is gone, and the Tigers are on the clock at 8, well then I would ask the question, are both Ethan Marks and Manny Rojas gone? Because that would mean Ethan Marks, Manny Rojas, Jack Sky, Xavier Savage would all be gone. And then there's only 3 other picks that are available. If we think Wyatt Harris is one of them, and if we think Dior Gore is one of them, then that leaves only 1 other player that could possibly be called in that top 7 in order for one of those 4 guys, Savage, Sky, Marks, or Rojas, not to be there for the Tigers. Now, I think that could very easily happen. Do I think that those 6 guys that I just named could very easily go in the top 7? I do. I think that could be, what we see. But if one of those guys isn't, if a Casey Chestnut slides into the top 7, or a Brian O'Connor, or a Nick O'Quinn, if any of those guys slide into the top 7, well, then you're looking at a scenario where the Tigers could get either Xavier Savage or Jack Sky if they wanted to go corner, or Ethan Marks or Manny Rojas if they wanted to go edge. And I think that is the best case scenario. Whichever one of those guys are there, that's the guy that you take. If it's Jack Sky, great. Then you go edge rusher in round 3. If it's Manny Rojas, great. Then you go cornerback in round 3, right? So I think the Tigers don't really have a lot to think about, in my opinion. Ultimately, their choice is going to be made for them based on whatever happens 1 through 7. Now, in the wild scenario, and I guess it's not really a wild scenario, in the scenario where Savage and Sky are gone in the top 7 and Rojas and Marks are gone in the top 7, well, now is when the Tigers have to either pivot or figure out who they like the most. Because again, I think corner and edge are the 2 places that they need to go. And if those 4 names, if those 2 corners and those 2 edge rushers that I mentioned are gone, well, then the only other edge rusher that you might consider at that point is a Nick O'Quinn, right? Like, could you go Nick O'Quinn? Absolutely. I could see that scenario. I think they'd rather have Manny Rojas or Ethan Marks, but if Nick O'Quinn is there, I think you would then at that point go Nick O'Quinn. But again, if Nick O'Quinn happens to be that one name, if it's Savage, Sky, Marks, Rojas, Dior Gore, Wyatt Harris, and Nick O'Quinn, if those are the 7 names that go 1 through 7, and now the Tigers are on the board, then I think this is where things could get really weird, because do you want to take Brian Robinson at 8 overall or Kenzo Yudo at 8 overall? I don't know if you want to do that. If you're looking at the edge, like, are you going to take a Hassan Bird or Raheem Underwood at 8 overall? I don't know if you're going that early. If you're looking at like a pure defensive edge type, are you going to Russell Shackelford? That you could do, or maybe even a Randy Wilson. I know there's a lot of people out there who like Randy Wilson more than Russell Shackelford, or maybe you like Asina Inoue, right? Like, maybe you want to go that route. I think that if you told the Tigers that they were going to have Russell Shackelford with their first round pick, they would have liked to have told you that their first round pick was like 13, 14, 15, 16 range and not 8. So I think what the Tigers are hoping for is that Ethan Marks, Manny Rojas, Nick O'Quinn as an edge rushing option, or Jack Sky or Xavier Savage as the corner. And I think that one of those guys will be available. I can't imagine that I just literally throw out those 7 names and that's exactly how the top 7 are going to go. We see, stuff outside the box. We see things go, haywire all the time in the RFL draft. So, if the top 7 picks are in fact Wyatt Harris, Dior Gore, Ethan Marks, Manny Rojas, Xavier Savage, Jack Sky, and Nick O'Quinn, like, if those happen to be the first 7 names that are called, well, then the Tigers are going to be in a little bit of an interesting situation, in my opinion. I don't think that's going to happen. And because I don't think that's going to happen, I think ultimately they are going to get either Ethan Marks, Manny Rojas, Jack Sky, Xavier Savage, or Nick O'Quinn. If they decide that they wanted to go Nick O'Quinn, maybe they like somebody else more than Nick O'Quinn. Maybe it's, a Russell Shackelford. Maybe they want more of that D end pass rusher instead of that linebacker edge rusher. That could be a conversation that they would have. But I think for the most part, for the Tigers, you're looking at corner and edge rusher with those first 2 picks, the round 1 pick and the round 3 pick. And then again, I think you got to address wide receiver at some point, probably round 6, maybe round 7. And then what you do with that round 5 pick, I think that's kind of up to you. Maybe you want to double down. Maybe you want to get another corner. Maybe you want to get another edge rusher, right? So I think the Tigers draft is going to be an interesting one. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the, I would say for me, it's one of the more predictable drafts, right? Because again, I think round 1 and round 3, you're going corner and you're going edge. Round 6 and round 7, you're going at least 1 wide receiver, if not 2. And then round 5, that's where you kind of got, a toss up, or maybe you go receiver in round 5, right? And then you go round 6, round 7, you got a toss-up guy. So we'll see what ultimately the Tigers want to do. Again, the first round of the draft kicks off tonight, guys. We are, as of recording this right now, we are less than 4 hours away from round 1 of the, RFL draft kicking off. So what are the Tampa Bay Tigers going to do with that 8th overall pick remains to be seen. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can get updates and notifications as soon as these draft team previews drop. But that's going to wrap up the Tampa Bay Tigers team preview. Again, the RFL draft will kick off at 6 p.m. tonight. That's Friday night. And then we'll have, draft coverage throughout the weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, it is a full-on RFL draft weekend. So I'm going to try to get a couple more of these videos. I may only have time for one more. We got to sit down and get together in the miners locker room and the miners, the war room, our draft HQ. And, we're going to get to work a couple hours before the draft kicks off. So I'll try to get a couple more team previews here. But that's going to wrap up the Tampa Bay Tigers. Until next time, I am Chris Dunn, and take care, everybody.